Okay, so Matt, let's rewind the clock a little and take me back to when you were 300 pounds. What was some of the series of moments and triggers that led you to want to make a change?
It was more of one moment, one trigger, actually. I had kept myself kind of in denial, I suppose. On some level, I must have known what was happening to my body. And I had gotten stretch marks and wasn't sure what they were. Kind of freaked me out, but I didn't really think too much about it because I was in denial. I was in such a bad place in my life. And one night I went to a friend's house who I'd seen, recently and seen frequently. And the party had started before I got there. I showed up a little late, and his honesty filter had been turned up to maximum. And as I walked into the party, as happy as could be, seeing all these friends and people, getting hugs from everybody, he grabbed a hold of me and hugged me and said, "Man, you got fat," in the middle of a party of friends of mine, females. And I was just so blindsided. I was really in denial the whole time about it. And when he said those words, it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I tried to play it off that night and have fun at the party, but I ended up leaving early, just kind of going, "Oh man, he's right. Look at me." I think I went into the bathroom at some point at the party and kind of looked at myself and went, "Oh my God, he's right. Like, what have I done to myself?" And the very next morning I got up and said, "I don't want to be that guy. And I'm just going to make every step forward until I can stop being that guy for once and for all. I don't want to look like that. I don't want to eat those foods. I don't want to live that lifestyle." And I've just been pushing forward ever since.
Wow. And when you reflect on like that guy, as you said, how did you feel? I know you said you were in denial, but how did you feel inside when you looked in the mirror, when you came out the shower?
Mm-hmm. Maybe that night and maybe even the next day, I was mad at him, and I was, I'm surprised I didn't punch him that night, really, like the way I felt. And I've had a violent past, and I kind of grew up in some bad situations. So the fact that it didn't happen kind of told me, you believe this on some level yourself. And so I began to thank him for being the first person to be honest with me. And I didn't see him for a while after that. I have numerous groups of friends. And at that point, I started kind of just sticking to myself because all of my groups for friends were pretty toxic, and no one was making any progress in their lives. So I just kind of secluded myself for a while. That's when I met my now wife. She was a major influence on me, but that was also after I'd spent over a year pushing myself and just learning what I was doing wrong, I guess is the way to put it. And somewhere around that point, then I saw that old friend, Pat and Matt. And I gave him a big hug, and it was the opposite reaction. He's like, "What happened to you? Where'd you go? Look at you." And I was like, you're the reason. You were kind of the catalyst. Wow. You were the honesty moment that made me realize where I was and what I'd done to myself. And so I thanked him for it, and he couldn't believe it. He didn't even remember that night.
Wow. Just goes to show how like small comments can change your life, right? Mm-hmm. And if you would take it even further back, how did you end up at 300 pounds?
Yeah. Okay. I was very much an athlete as a kid. I loved tackle football and boxing and wrestling. And I played pretty much every sport I could all my life. Very much hyperactive and nonstop go kind of kid. And I didn't have a good self-esteem at that point in time. But the activity kind of made up for the poor eating and the lack of knowledge about nutrition and things. And in high school, my dad left our family, and he was kind of the rule enforcer. And so I started going through a bit of a rebellious phase in every aspect. And at that time, I was new on the football team, and they didn't really let the grade nines play very much. So I was putting in so much work into practice and getting nothing out of it in games, or like getting to progress my football career with that school. And it just turned into a straight up rebellion where I stopped playing football and stopped pretty much all sports and went with my other passion, which is music and singing and drumming. I've been a drummer for about as long as I played football. And so that avenue of life, and without my dad's kind of rule of law in the house, he just never would have let me get fat. He would have stopped me in my tracks and been like, okay, we're not buying any more ice cream if you're just going to eat it all and get fat on us. He was that kind of guy. And he was gone, so he couldn't influence me anymore. My mom, she also struggled with her weight. She was obese. And so eating her pattern of foods the way she was, and in a depressed state that she was, I just started gaining weight too. I was playing in a rock band, staying up all night, drinking alcohol, eating pizza or Burger King at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then sleeping for 12 hours. It's essentially like a sumo growth plan of how you would train a sumo wrestler without much of the exercise aside from drumming. Drumming was kind of the only thing that kept me exercising, and it is hard work, but I just started to deteriorate. It was kind of late 90s, 2000s. Everybody was dressing baggy anyway, so it was easy to hide behind the clothing and the style of the day. A little bit of a beard or a goatee, I could kind of hide my chin and not really notice it in the mirror. And I stopped looking in the mirror. You know, I started shaving in the shower and not really seeing what was going on with my face, or looking at angles I didn't like. If I saw a picture of myself I didn't like, I just kind of ignored it. I stopped going to the beach with my friends. I stopped like living my life for a number of years, stopped doing things I used to love, and just circled around in music and drugs and alcohol. And then one day it just snapped, and the honesty moment just came crashing down, and I've never looked back.
If you were to give yourself a hard piece of advice outside of what your friend gave you that night, what do you think it would have been? You know, what do you say to the younger Matt when, you know, he was surrounded by and taking part in drugs, food, alcohol, just a very reckless lifestyle?
That's a hard question, because I don't think young Matt wanted to listen to anybody. If I could have gone back in time, I think young Matt wouldn't have believed that future Matt was actually a real construct. I was in such a rebellious phase. Nobody could tell me anything. It was all inside of me. And if I could tell that person one thing, it would have been that your father had those rules because he loved you and didn't want you to destroy yourself. And as tough as he was trying his best the only way he knew how.
What do you think you're rebelling against?
Possibly my dad's rules. He had such strict rules. When he left, I just felt like I could do anything. A big part of it was the broken family and seeing how much pain there was. And I was angry at him for leaving us, really. And he was the breadwinner. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So it changed everything in my life. I went from never really having a care in the world, money-wise or otherwise. Dad used to take us on vacations and things, and all of a sudden it just changed. It was another time where things changed at the drop of a hat. I'd come home from it was either 1 or 2 months, a counselor in training program they'd put me in to become a camp counselor in my teenage years. And I came home from camp at the end of that training session, having not seen my family in months. And that's when they told me and my sister that they were breaking up. And so it was another moment where everything just changed in an instant. And I was rebelling against everything. I didn't like high school. I didn't like the way they made me learn in their style. I've always said I have a unique style of learning. I can learn really well, and I've gotten A pluses in all kinds of things, but I don't do well sitting in a classroom and just absorbing knowledge the way they just give it to me. And so I was rebelling against that, and rebelling against my mom then trying to enforce new rules and not necessarily agreeing with her. She was obese. My dad was fairly fit, so I didn't feel like she knew as much as him. So her rules didn't make sense, and I didn't have to follow his anymore. So it was kind of just rebelling against everything. Losing the football career, that was another piece of it too, rebelling against that. If you won't let me play on the team in the games, I'm going to go play in the school band. At the school I went to, football and music were kind of equal on two different spectrums of popularity. And being in the in crowd, if you weren't an athlete and you weren't a musician, you're kind of on the outskirts of friend groups. So at one point I was both. And when football ended, I went, okay, then I'll show you what I can do on this side of things and in the music realm.
Did you ever speak to your dad after you left?
Yeah, we maintained a relationship, difficult for a number of years. We kind of made some peace. When I had kids, I kind of felt I had to, because my kids wanted to know their grandpa. And, a long time has passed. So we had a lot of contact. We had a lot of conversations about things. And I want to say we made amends. We made our peace as best as two guys who butt heads with each other can. He passed away in 2021. So that's been a part of this journey as well for me.
How did that help you find closure around that moment for you? Or has it? And how has it impacted your parenting as a result?
Yes and no. The closure thing, not really, because he lived, at the time of his death, he lived in South Carolina and I'm up in Canada. So it's a 16-hour drive. So we didn't see him super often anyway. But then during COVID, we couldn't really see him at all. And that's when he got sick. And there was no ceremony for us to attend. We haven't, his wife has the ashes still and hasn't come. We haven't gotten around to that yet, I guess. She has some plans she wants to get into, things he said he wanted her to do after he passed. So we plan to get into that. But I mean, she's had a major struggle of her own with having to change houses and move and different income and all that sort of stuff. So closure, still don't really feel it. To be honest, it's an ongoing process. And in terms of my parenting style, I try and be a split of my father and mother. And when I make decisions, I try and look at what both of them would have done, because they were so opposite to each other in their parenting styles. My mom said yes to everything. My dad said no to almost everything. He had the rules and the order, and she had the care and compassion. So I try and use that in terms of, I want to be both those things. And I want to give to my kids all the best that I got.
Mm. Is there an element of, when you experience generational obesity, where it passes through the generations because of general behavior in the family, have you found a strong purpose in trying to break that cycle? How has generational health played a part into your parenting, into the family, into the household?
It definitely weighs on me. It's definitely something I think about and try to eliminate from our family. My mom's side of the family comes from Mennonite background. And so they have very strong traditions and traditions for longevity, but not necessarily optimal health or fitness or physique. Most of my family on that side would probably be considered at least overweight, but probably obese, probably. At least the ones I knew. There wasn't a whole lot of people I knew or remember in that side of the family, but I don't remember anybody being really strong or fit. They were farmers for most of our generations. And then my grandparents, I believe, were the last generation to farm, and they stopped partway through their life. My mom was kicked out of the Mennonite church, and she went through kind of a teenage rebellion. So I think that's in the generational DNA as well. So I try and talk to my kids about this. They are very active, like I was: gymnastics, boxing, kickboxing, both daughters, by the way, dance, and a few other things. So I would encourage them to stay in that. And I've talked to them numerous times about my past. I've shown them pictures of me and why I preach what I preach. And I try and do it in a much gentler way than my dad did. And my dad was also not the cook of the family. My mom was. So in this sense, I get to do both. And my wife is very much on board as well. She works in the health realm for the University of Waterloo over here. So she's very much on board with these, I don't want to say rules, because I don't try and make rules for my children in that sense. I say more just advice and guidelines. And once in a while, I might have to throw down a rule if I see something going the wrong way. But for the most part, I talk to them about it and try and educate them about it. I wrote a book years ago, and I've re-released it because I took the time to read it again recently. And it's still stuff I'm trying to teach a lot of people. I thought it would have become outdated by now. So one of my daughters has started reading the book now.
Wow.
She's asked me to get it up on Amazon, so I'm working on that.
For those listening, what's it called? I know you showed it on video, but what's it called?
It is called Predators to Competitors. It's kind of about the evolution of your family's history and how that impacts how you eat in accordance with the seasons. So there's a lot of ancestral health, but a lot of just fitness and weight loss, and a lot of just pieces from my journey of going from 300 to 180 that I wanted other people to know. And then since writing that book, I went through a number of other struggles as a grown-up. I feel like I was a very young man when I wrote that book. I was a personal trainer, and it was really the lessons I was trying to give people that I couldn't give them in the gym. Things they ask about, and I'd go, okay, yeah, I know I got a lot to tell you about that, but I just don't have the time because we're working on exercise form right now. So I started writing things down and compiled it and compiled it and compiled it. And that's what it ended up being. So I've decided to re-release it just to try and get it to more people, kind of motivated by my daughter's reading it. And it's stuff she's never heard before unless I've said it to her. There's a few pieces in there for sure she's heard, but there's a lot in there she doesn't know. So I'm kind of honored that she's picked it up and been like, I want to read this. I want to find out. She works out with me. That's my eldest daughter. My youngest daughter is so super active. I don't get to work out with her. She's in competitive gymnastics and like performance dance. So I have to struggle to keep her doing recovery and stretching and, maintenance of her muscles. So it's kind of opposing roles. In one sense, I'm a personal trainer and workout pal with my oldest daughter. And then my youngest daughter, she has coaches there already. So I'm more of her recovery coach and lifestyle coach. So I have a lot of influence on them, and I love that. And I think it will help me break the cycle of obesity and rebellion in my family.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing so openly on that. I can imagine it's not the easiest thing to think about sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. It's all part of my story, though.
Absolutely. And, we kind of, this story was something that, struck with me when I first read it back in the back end of 2021. You shared it as part of your giveaway entry to join RNT as in January 2022. And I remember reading it quite vividly. And I was in Jamaica at the time, and I was in the process of selecting the winner. And I came across your story, and I was like, wow, Matt needs RNT to go to that, to almost to take the story to even greater depths. And it was a story that really struck me as the most powerful one I'd read out of all the entries that day. And I still think there's a universal connection for you coming into our world. So, maybe we look a little bit before the giveaway, and what brought you to RNT? What attracted you? How did you come across us? And what made you take that step of, all right, I want to take it to the next level now and complete this journey and get to the dream body I'd always wanted?
I want to say the opportunity really was the catalyst. Again, it's that once in a lifetime moment for me. That's how a lot of things happen for me. It's just that snap of opportunity or snap of clarity or honesty or whatever. I struggled after losing, 120 pounds. I struggled with how I looked, and I was proud of myself, and I looked great in clothing, but in the mirror, I still wasn't happy with what I saw. I don't think I ever had been in my life. Even as a little kid, when I look back at those pictures, I see a fit little kid. And some of the pictures, I'm like, dude, you had abs when you were that age. But sorry, I got a call. I got to not take here. I had the mentality that I, as a kid, was overweight and chubby and never lived up to what I'd hoped for. And I was a huge comic book nerd, Superman, Batman. Sorry, comic book nerd. I didn't say that very well. I wanted to look like those guys. And at 8-9 years old, I couldn't understand why I didn't when I worked out. And, my dad showed me how to do sit-ups and how to use his bench press. And I remember doing sit-ups one night and waking up the next day and going, where's the abs? Like, I thought you were supposed to get abs from this. So I had body dysmorphia from a very young age. I just always felt like if I'm a football player or a boxer, shouldn't I look like those guys? I hadn't even hit puberty, but nobody told me that. And I probably wasn't honest enough to tell anybody the way I was feeling about it. My parents and I did not have that kind of relationship where we talked about those kind of things. And so really struggled with my body image, and that would somehow lead me into binge eating, I guess, is what I would call it now, after being through RNT and looking at my past history compared to last year and compared to now, what has become just my lifestyle and very comfortable. I used to binge eat, and I'm not even 100% sure why. I think I had just, I wasn't comfortable in my own skin yet. And it was a hard thing to live with, even though I was doing things that were counterproductive to what I needed to do. So I would watch sports and envy the guys I'm looking at or the ladies I'm looking at for their athletic prowess and physique. And then I'd eat 1,000 calories of something or other. For what reason? Soothing some sort of pain, maybe. I'm not sure. The same reason I did drugs when I was a teenager. Soothing some sort of inner pain I've kind of always had. And I've tried, if I was to tell you I've tried everything up until RNT other than RNT, it probably wouldn't be a lie. There is next to nothing I didn't try at some point in time. I was doing fasting and intermittent fasting way before there was books written about it. It was like people thought I was nuts what I was doing. I'm like, they used to do this back in antiquity. It's in the Bible. It's in Ayurvedic medicine. Humans have been doing this for so long. And people thought I was nuts. And it would work a little bit, but I didn't really understand what I was doing. So then it would backfire, or I'd find myself back to eating the way I was, not really making permanent changes, to have a permanent physique change. And that is the thing about RNT that struck a chord with me. You guys have an amazing track record with a huge array of clients in all kinds of different lifestyles, with all kinds of different battles they needed to fight, and success with so many people. And to be honest, I've seen great marketing before, and I've tried so many things before, but it was the fact that you guys talked about pieces that I learned in psychology in college, and so many other people's nutritional programs or personal training programs I always would benefit from, but then say, I need more to take me through this and make it a long-term solution. And the pieces I needed weren't exercise, because I've done that for so long and I've been a personal trainer and I understand those things so well. And I love exercise. It's not hard to make me go do it. I needed pieces that were about psychology and the why of what I'm doing it. You and I had a lot of talks, and Ivan and I had a lot of talks about the why of my story, and why am I putting myself through this to accomplish this? What do I hope to get out of this? And so a lot of going through those moments, again, being honest with myself, those moments of clarity and honesty, and saying, this is why it means so much to me. It's life-changing to have those epiphanies. Those are those lightning moments that change you in an instant. And then having someone who's done this before themselves, who's walked other clients through it, made me feel like RNT would be a guarantee on their side of things, your side of things, that you can do what I need. And so then it was, can I do what I need? Can I give myself 100%? Can I go all in? Can I do everything that's required, not only to make a cut down to 170, 160, 66, I think it was, a photo shoot day, to do that once, but to then not lose it. I've looked good before and been happy with myself, but never to the point I'd hoped to get to. And then I would never be able to keep even that level of fitness and physique. Perhaps it was disappointment of never actually getting as far as I wanted to get in my weight loss goals and in my physique goals. Again, feeling like a failure and ending a diet, and ended up just back to eating, too much food at too many times, and ending back up at 190. Or, there's been times I was back up to 207, 215, I think I saw at one point in time, through this 8 to 10 years of floundering through not being happy, but also not quite being able to get to the point I wanted to get to on my own. And so when I saw RNTs, I must have read every testimonial. I watched every video. I was the super fan, a stalker fan for a month. And then, sorry, I should back up. I believe in there, I'd already requested your book. And I'm not sure I think I had an e-version of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not great with ebooks. I tend to just get distracted and move on to things. So you had a giveaway for a hard copy book. And I'd asked for a copy of that, which thank you for that. I still have it. I've lent it to a few people now, and always got it back. It showed me that you had the knowledge I needed, the long-term psychology pieces, the stuff that would help me change my brain forever, instead of just having looking good at the beach for a vacation, or doing a diet and then just giving up on it. I knew from your book I had a lot more to learn still. It made me realize I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. And it made me want to work with one of the RNT coaches to really work through my stuff instead of just knowing about my stuff and trying to work through it. I really wanted somebody's help to work me through it, to take me through it, and to be honest with me. Again, that honesty moment. Ivan is a very honest dude. He didn't sugarcoat things too much for me. He was always good on me, and I always knew he had my best interests at heart. But he was honest with me, and I needed that. I need that in my life in a lot of ways. And going through it with his help, with your help, with Ed's help, with the cohort's help, with the community's help, and then getting to the checkpoint, it was so amazing. And I know I couldn't have done it without you guys. So signing up for the giveaway, that's what I envisioned in my head. Exactly what happened up until checkpoint, because I wasn't sure what to expect after checkpoint. Those were the mysteries I needed to get to in order to really solve the puzzle once and for all. And so my story, hard to write for sure, hard for me to even read it again when I look at it, but inspiring for me nonetheless. And it was like, I got nothing to lose. I know I really need this. Why not give it a try?
It's always amazing when people take action on something and there's an opportunity like that, because it has the potential to change your life. And you know that when I write these giveaway opportunities, and I think for the most recent one, I asked you to film a video to talk about why, what's possible, because it genuinely is life-changing possibilities that you grasp with both hands and went for it. I'm really curious because we have no real connection from a community perspective. How did you come across RNT in the first place? What was the thing that put you on our horizon? This is my curiosity from what got you into the world?
Yeah, I'm an avid reader. I'm an avid biohacker. I love to try and make things better, or to try and just do things in the best, most efficient ways possible. And one of those experiments was data-driven fasting with Marty Kendall and Alex. I can't remember his last name because I can never tag him on Facebook. I'd come across their work previously about micronutrients. And I was looking at some nutrients that I thought I would be low in from the way I eat. And through some of their stuff, I got to data-driven fasting, which is like a blood sugar measurement system of how often should you be eating, how long does your body fast comfortably, kind of thing. I've never been a breakfast eater, so it was kind of just trying to optimize how is my body reacting to not eating breakfast if I worked out really hard yesterday or if I didn't. So it was very much an experiment, and it was useful for me. I learned some stuff there. But what I found was Marty had a podcast with Ivan. And Ivan had used the data-driven fasting program himself as an experiment. And so they had a podcast a little bit about that, but a lot of bit about Ivan's epic cut way back when, and his pictures. I think Marty said he only has like 2 or 3 pictures on Instagram. He's like, he's an enigma. And so he wanted to, pick his brain. And I watched that podcast, 3 or 4 times going, okay, this is some serious business now. Who is this guy? How did he get that lean? And who taught him? And so that brought me to you. And I think that's when I downloaded the book for free on the website, or maybe off Amazon. I can't remember. But I got the book then at that point and started reading it, but kind of didn't get into it fast enough or through it fast enough just because I'm not an e-reader. And then once I got the hard copy book, I just dug right into it and, probably read it in 3 days, maybe over a weekend. I was just so enthralled. That's our link.
Amazing. Amazing. What a story. And when you came on board, what was the process like for you on the RNT journey, in 2022?
Exciting was the way I started for sure. Little nervous, feeling like, can I give it my all? Just, knowing my situation with a wife and kids, and I can never have a house without sugar in it. I can ask them to hide it, but there's never a way I can have a house with diet friendly foods only. And I know that. So that worried me a little bit. Excited mostly though. I was excited, especially when I got paired up with Ivan. You can imagine why. I was like, oh my God, I got the coach. It was either you or Ivan. I didn't really know Ed at the time. So I was like, if I get Akash or Ivan, I'm going to flip out with happiness. And I was super stoked when I got Ivan, because after having watched that podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Getting to connect with the guy who inspired me to get into this. How cool is that? And then I'd say going through it, it was challenging. It was reassuring in a lot of ways, though. I've challenged my body before, obviously, but it was reassuring knowing that when I get to those moments of uncertainty, which in my past often meant I'd get uncertain and I would go, okay, it means I need a new program. It means I should be doing something different in the gym. Oh, I should change my diet. Always changing something. And so having somebody, I wasn't sure at first how much is going to change. How much are we going to tweak this diet? And when I got the nutrition plan, I went, gosh, that looks pretty comfortable. Like, that looks pretty easy. It's not exactly what I eat right now, but it's all things I like. That's makes it pretty easy. Excited and nervous then for a while as I went through it, seeing weight come off, but also feeling like uncertainty about how much is the diet going to change throughout the process. My biggest thing, I think, was getting my head around how long it was going to take me. I think, like anybody, and you guys have said it a number of times, we don't realize how much fat we have until we really get going on it. And so I felt like I was going to go in for maybe a couple months, maybe just like 3 or 4 months. You were starting your own cut. And I'm like, maybe I can get on board with the timeline with Akash. How cool would that be? I got my coach as the guy who inspired me to get in it. Maybe I can get on the same timeline as the guy who's like now filled my head with so much life-changing information from your book. I'm like, how cool is that? And then I got my estimate. I was like, what? Me? No, me? Get out. And so that was tough. And I want to say on my defense, we did end up bumping up my numbers a little bit, just based on how long I've been training and how much, just what the pictures were coming out like. And so that was super useful too, because looking at yourself in the mirror is such a gambit. And then your mental state can completely alter what you think you're seeing when you're in denial, like I lived in for so long, or when you're not valuing the little changes that are happening. So having a coach on board, looking at pictures and saying, okay, keep doing this or tweak that, or we're going to, whatever we needed, whenever we needed to do to the diet or the training plan steps to get the right groove and to get me in a comfortable zone. And I would say I'm probably not Ivan's easiest client of the past. I had a fair number of struggles. My work life has been pretty stressful for the past year or two. So it was playing into things for sure. I've learned that when I get really stressed out, I turn to my bad habits more than I turn to my good habits. And so that's been kind of eye-opening too. Why am I grabbing junk food instead of meditating? They take about the same amount of time. Why am I going for something I know is counterproductive to my goals, my long-term lifestyle? So it's been a major shift, and just going through it for so long and identifying things with Ivan has helped me now to see I have better ways of handling my stress. But there were still times through the past year where I struggled with overeating. When I diet and train really hard, I have a hard time reeling in my diet. Ivan was very instrumental in kind of helping me get an understanding of that better. I think it's something I've never quite understood because I love to work out. I can be out playing basketball or skateboarding for 2-3 hours in a day without really thinking about it, on top of hitting the gym and lifting weights or doing boxing and intense stuff. So if I'm not cognizant of it, it can create a huge hunger, which I didn't really understand before. When I'm trying to cut calories and work out so hard, I was kind of digging myself into a hole. I wouldn't get anywhere because I'm training super hard. It's good for your heart and your lungs and your mental health and even for your muscles and things. But when you're trying to achieve a certain physique, training too hard at least in my case, was counterproductive. I had to find that sweet spot, and RNT really taught me what my sweet spot is. And it's lower than I thought it was. I thought I needed to work out like a professional athlete. Like since I was eight years old, I want to look like that linebacker from the 49ers, and I should train like that linebacker from the 49ers. But I'm not that guy. I'm not the same age. I don't train under the same circumstances. I have kids and a job and a desk job at that. So it's been instrumental in helping me break these mental constructs that have held me back for so long.
Two things on there. The first is you mentioned the estimated checkpoint day took you back a bit, and it's always a shocker for people. In fact, today's Instagram post was about this as well. Like if I had a penny for every time someone would be shocked at it, I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah.
How did you get your head around that? And what was your sort of approach to that feedback? Because I think it can throw people off in a sense of, nah, it's impossible. Like, I only need 5 pounds to drop.
Right. Yeah. I would say it really brought back that moment with my buddy Pat at that party when he told me I'd gotten fat, and I was in denial about it. I had gotten to pretty good shape in 2021 and was pretty darn happy with myself. Maybe the best I'd ever been at that point, but still not there yet. Still feeling like I'm not quite there yet. And having been 300 pounds, for a long time I had loose skin. And it was a concern of mine. I've mentioned it to you and to Ivan before, and we've talked about it. And that's part of the struggle for me about being honest with it, because you can lose all this weight and then have this piece of skin hanging there, or droopy skin in a spot you want it to be tight. And it plays with your mind. It makes you think, geez, is that fat in there? Like, is that just skin? And doctors aren't really good at talking about that sort of stuff, like family doctors. And there's not a lot of great information on the internet to understand it. So it was a bit of a place of denial, when I kind of slipped back at the end of 2021 and gained back a bunch of weight. Some of it was just denial. Is this partly to do with my loose skin? Will that loose skin ever go away if I get rid of enough fat? How much is enough fat? And that's where we got to that point of the checkpoint. And I went, wow, that's how much? Like, holy moly, that's a lot. Like, I couldn't really, at first I couldn't believe it. And I want a denial. I was like, okay, they just don't understand what a beast I am. They just don't know how strong I am. They don't know. I've lifted, I used to deadlift like 525 pounds, I think was the top weight I ever got to.
Really?
I'm like, so I definitely got more muscle than they know about, right? And I had a little ego too there, I'm sure. But I went, okay, so you signed on with these guys. You trust their expertise. Let's just go with it. And maybe in the long run, they'll bump your number up a little bit once they see the weights you're lifting and your physique as you strip away fat and things. But the loose skin thing has always played games with my mind, even as far back as I can remember, when there was no stretch marks and I was just a little kid. I remember having a little paunch, the coach would say. You got a little pooch belly, coaches would always say, or old men, grandpas would grab me and be like, you got giant shoulders, but you need to lose some weight, and they'd tap you in the belly. So it's kind of always had this hanging over me. And so I felt like going through RNT, other than like getting plastic surgery, which I don't ever want to do, RNT seemed like the first thing I ever came across that I was like, I believe in this. I believe this could get me to where I want to get to. And if I get there and find out there's no more fat left here, it's just loose skin, then that's something I'm going to have to come to terms with. It was a shock. It hurt. And it took me back to that first time someone told me I was fat. It made me think of times when I was a little kid and felt this way. And I went, okay, coach, let's do it. When I feel like I need to fight, it empowers me. When I feel a challenge, I get amped up about it. Like, okay, let's do it, man. Coach says this is what it is. That's what it is. Let's go.
And in your photo shoot pictures, I don't recall there being any loose skin really, right? You look great.
No. Yeah. And honestly, you said this and I had a hard time believing it, but you're very right. The longer I maintain this physique, that old loose skin that is 20 years old, stretched, whatever that date range is still getting tighter. Yeah. I'm still maintaining a physique. I can't even believe it.
Amazing.
Yeah. And like the skin has tightened up. I've started writing a book about the things I've been doing with my skin over the past 20 years since losing that initial 100 pounds and then just being still, 50 pounds overweight, but with loose skin and still not liking where I was at. So I started writing a new book on that. I met the photographer that I did my RNT photo shoot with, had a skin condition, a collagen condition. And so we ended up having these great conversations because she's like, how did you get from 300 pounds to this without like a loose skin thing? And so we got to this great conversation. We have all these things in common that I've done that she's tried and had success with keeping her collagen in her skin renewed, I guess is the word. I've taken a course with an author about, it had a component about the collagen extracellular matrix and collagen remodeling. And so I'm still learning a bunch of new stuff too. And I have all these ideas for this book of what I've done to help my skin get back to that point. And when I came out of the photo shoot after the vacation, when I came back from the vacation, I just started sitting down and writing things out the way I used to for this first book for personal training clients. I started writing out things that I wanted people to know who have loose skin and are trying to fix it. I know a lot of moms who got stretch marks when they had babies, and it's forever been an issue, something they want to fix. I know one who just recently got a tummy tuck because of it, spent like, I think 20 grand on it. Gets mind blowing. I was like, I'll never have 20 grand to spend on a surgery. That's never been my life before. And I never wanted to take a shortcut in the matter. I wanted to get to that point. I wanted to prove that it's possible. That's what it is. I wanted to prove that it's possible because almost everybody I talked to said it's not possible. You had to get plastic surgery. And I said, I don't believe that. If we can heal bones and we can heal brain matter, I believe there's ways. So I'm working on another book for that purpose.
Nice. I think I've definitely seen an individual response to massive weight loss. Some people are fortunate enough not to have much loose skin. Some people really struggle with it. I think the one, whilst I don't have conclusive evidence on it, what I have seen is just the thing you've mentioned, in that if you can really keep it off for a while, you can really, it can help. But I've got no sort of conclusive evidence on it, more just an anecdotal feel. Which segues nicely onto asking, and this was the sort of the second question I wanted to ask from earlier, is how have you battled the consolidation phase and the ability to keep the weight off? Because this is the first time you've kept the weight off now for a sustained, for a long period of time. How have you battled that? And, what have been some of the challenges that, and some of the successes that have been paramount to you building this lifestyle solution now?
Yeah, it was just the way everything fell together could have been the worst thing in the world for somebody, or it could have been the best thing in the world for somebody. And I was worried about it. I'd set my photo shoot just kind of where I'd gotten to with my weight loss and physique. I knew I couldn't go too much further. Being 42 at the time, almost 43, I knew I couldn't go too much further without too much pushback. Just knowing where I came from and the eating, I want to say eating disorders maybe that I've had before about binge eating. I knew I couldn't push too far without too much further without pushback and becoming a bad thing. So we'd set my photo shoot, and then we got invited to a wedding in Mexico at an all-inclusive resort. I think that actually was there first, and I'm just really bad with dates. And my wife was like, "Oh, so you planned your photo shoot right before the all-inclusive wedding?" And I was like, Ivan, we got a problem. And Ivan said he has confidence in me that I can go through this and that it would be a challenge for sure, being all around all these foods, but that he didn't see any reason I needed to change my photo shoot, and that putting it after the vacation wasn't a good idea. And I'd already paid for it and signed on with the photographer. And so I really didn't want to change it. So that scared me. I've been to some all-inclusives before, including in Jamaica, which I think is how the universe found a connection for the two of us. We walked in the same path in the sand, and somehow we got connected. And I've had success at them before. Oftentimes when I go to a resort, I'm very cognizant of my physique and how I look on the beach. So I don't want to eat a giant bunch of stuff, and I don't want to feel all gross and bloated and indigestion. So I've kind of always at resorts and things been pretty good at maintaining normalcy, except alcohol. All-inclusive alcohol has always been a problem for me. And Ed actually was instrumental. I'm not even sure how he got involved with me because he wasn't my coach, but somehow through the emails, Ed helped me see that my alcohol intake causes me to make poor decisions with food. So that's a major thing I learned too. So when I went into the week after my checkpoint photo shoot, we're at an all-inclusive resort, I just kept remembering the things that I learned and trying not to go overboard, but also trying to have fun. I was there with a group of friends. I'm known as a bit of a wild and crazy guy. So we had a lot of fun. I really only had one night where I drank a lot of beer, and that was the wedding. And I worked out every day, and I played basketball, and I played with the kids, and I stayed very active, and had a great time. And I didn't gain any weight. I came back, I think even just like maybe a pound or two lighter. And I was like, nailed it. But I also knew we got stuck in the airport for hours, and I probably hadn't eaten as much and maybe a bit dehydrated. So the mental thing started kicking in again too. If you didn't gain any weight, but you're dehydrated, did you actually gain some weight? Mm-hmm. So started to get that little feeling of fear. But continuing on with the daily weigh-ins and check-ins with Ivan and just keeping tabs on everything, I just got right back in my groove and started trying to figure out how can I find the comfort that I had at the resort, because I didn't have to cook anything. It was so easy, right? You had to plan anything. My kids' menu was different than mine every day, and I never had to like balance it out like I do at home. So it made it kind of easy just to sit in a groove and have a lovely week. And so I was like, how can I create that at home so that I have that flexibility with my family and that ease of planning? And it just felt really nice. After going so hard for so long, it's like, I barely thought about it at all. I just ate what I was used to. It had become such a habit through RNT. This is my protein. Here's my vegetables, and I like a little bit of retrograded starch if I can find it. That's just what works the best for me, right? And when I got home, a lot more struggles because there's the habits you're used to. At a resort, I didn't have weekly football games I watch and like to lay down on the couch to watch, or buddies I hang out with and drink beer on certain nights and end up making bad decisions with food like I used to way back. You didn't have that there. You had this constant supply of food around you. So I just kind of thought, okay, that's kind of what it is at home too, right? There was always desserts there. There was amazing desserts there. And I only ever had like one little square like this. And I was like, that's plenty. That's totally fine. My kids are like, you should try this cake. You should try that. And I'm like, I just got my one little square here of whatever it was. And so being at home, I kind of used that to guide what would be my long-term solution, and just kind of that comfort zone where I can maintain this physique, but also allow my kids and wife to have their comfort zone too. I've kind of always been the chef of the family. Because I come from a Mennonite background, I know a lot about food, and I've been cooking since I was a little kid. So they've always told me I'm so good at it. You do it, right? And my wife was always on board with that. She's like, I love he cooks for me. This is amazing. He's a good cook. He's a good cook. But she never got to contribute as much. And whenever I was trying to work on my physique, she would have to accommodate me, whether that means letting me weigh out my food before other people take it, or before it's seasoned or whatever, or cooking certain meals because that's how I'm eating, or a meal that has 3 parts and I'm only going to take 2 of them because I'm on a diet right now. So she's always had this kind of deal with me. And now it seems like after coming back from vacation, it seemed like all of a sudden she wanted to cook more. She was more engaged in it. She was bringing recipes to the table she wanted to try. And I could just see this was a good thing for all of us. Less days of the week I have to do it. She's engaging in it and she enjoys it. They're healthy meals. The kids like it. So it kind of opened this possibility of, let's treat that as kind of that, the buffet dinner. You know, and I always have to eat every piece that's offered to you, or every portion of the meal. If I don't feel like I need pasta, I just don't eat the pasta, or I'll eat a teeny tiny little bit of it. But it's kind of like made just life a little happier altogether, just with food in general. And the kids have always kind of helped with food a bit because I've been teaching them their Mennonite roots for all these years. But finding my comfort zone has allowed kind of my family to have even more of a comfort zone. And once in a while, my wife will ask me, is it okay if I put this much butter in this thing? And I know how to balance it now. I understand so much more about my portion sizes and what I need in order to maintain this physique. When I eat something that somebody else has made, it just makes it so much easier to have that, but to understand how it plays into my day, plan for it in advance when possible, or use the next day to say, okay, I know that dinner last night was way over calories, so we're just going to cut things back a little bit today. And I've stopped measuring. I've stopped like portion sizes. I've stopped measuring for the most part. Sometimes still fats a little bit because they can get out of control pretty quickly. But the only things I'm really measuring right now is my weight to make sure I'm maintaining my waist size. That helps me not play mental games with myself. Do I look better today? Do I look worse today? If it's the same measurement, you don't need to worry about what you look like or what your brain is trying to tell you. So having lifts in the gym to maintain my strength. So those are kind of the things I'm measuring. And we're like 4 months in now, and just every week it's consistent as can be. Everything is just as consistent as can be, and comfortable and happy. And like I said, I'm still still just shocked at the physique I built and can maintain now.
Why is this the time that you're never going to go back?
That is a good question. Why is this the time that I'm never going to go back? Because I understand it. Every time I went back in the past, it was question marks and my that monkey mind circling around, making you think about things too much, overthinking, overanalyzing, questioning things, getting off a diet and being like, oh, I gained 10 pounds, must be muscle. Like I just had all these kind of delusions and things I didn't understand very well. And so going through this process, not only did I learn a lot that applies to anybody and everybody, I learned a lot that only applies to me. And those things, those lessons, a lot of them were those lightning bolt moments that change you forever. And once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. And I have so many of those going forwards. And having written it out after reading your book, and then written it out again in the onboarding process, and again in the application for the contest, it's just so ingrained in me now why this is important to me, why I've struggled for so long, even like back to my childhood, why I had those feelings. A lot of it makes sense now. I'm not sure I could sit down and explain it 100% to somebody else because it's so far reaching and goes so far back into my childhood. But I understand it. It all makes sense to me now. It's like somebody came along and gave me the part of the book I was missing, that just nothing ever quite made sense. I knew the story, but there was one little snippet in there about how that hero got from this point when he was in this problem to this point here where he was now on the other side of that problem and triumphant. That part of the book was missing. And I have been searching for so long for that part of the book, for me, what it means to me. And that's what RNT did, was it caused me to write that chapter of the book and understand it myself, really. Nobody can tell you those things, but people can guide you into the questions, the thoughts, and the learnings that you need in order to make those epiphanies happen for yourself. So I feel like I'm a different person. Like my brain there's so much change that there is no going back. I just couldn't. I don't think I could.
To start wrapping up on this podcast, I'd love to know, how has the physical transformation been the vehicle for you in your life, man?
It's a snowball that has started rolling and just keeps picking up steam. As I said, I don't want to plug it too much here, but I re-released my book. It'll be on Amazon soon. I did that just because it's still relevant, and I wanted to get it to people, because if I'm going to do that second book, which I'm doing now, so that's one of the things, is I've re-engaged my love for writing and authoring. RNT kind of inspired me to do that. At one point, I was trying to probe Ivan and Ed about, is there any way I can come work for you guys as a writer? I really am good at writing. So keep that in the back of your mind. I started a clothing brand. You're looking at it right now. Hellcat Clothing Company. HellcatClothingCompany.com. It's board apparel, lifestyle stuff. I skateboard and snowboard, so I'm trying to stick with what I know. And I'm Matt the cat. I have cats. This logo is actually one of my cats.
Matt, just so anyone wondering, because they're probably seeing the podcast title and they're thinking, who's Matt the cat? Why Matt the cat? Just before, okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I was hoping you would ask, actually, because I know you were curious about it. So Matt the cat is my online persona, I guess I would say, perhaps my alter ego. I've always had some social anxiety and difficulty fitting into groups that are new. And along this journey, I decided that's something I need to counter. And it really took off during the pandemic. I was having to be on camera a lot. And I get pretty nervous being on camera, regardless who else is there. Even if I'm just shooting a video of my own, I get nervous. And so Matt the Cat was partly a persona for me to be like, well, you don't have, Matt the Cat doesn't get nervous on camera. Matt the Cat's cool as can be. And the other part of it was my name. Matthew Alexander Smith is a fairly generic name where I come from. And I've met, I think, 2 other Matthew Smiths in the town I live in alone. I think there's 500,000 people here. So it's fairly common. So Matt the Cat is a bit more attention grabbing. It's a little more fun. Matthew Alexander Smith just seems kind of boring to me.
Well, you're known as Matt the Cat at RNT.
Right. And I grew up in music, and I had a love for, I'm looking for some pieces around here. I had a love for punk rock. And as a kid, I was called Tiger. My nickname was Tiger as a young boy. My dad gave me that nickname. He was a kung fu artist, or was it karate? I think it was karate, sorry. And he studied Tiger style, which he said was the most aggressive style. And that's why he gave me that nickname, because I was a crazy little aggressive cat. And so I always gravitated to cat sport teams. The closest local one that was cat related was the Ticats. They had a tiger on their logo. So I've kind of always loved cats. But somewhere in my life, I got away from who I used to be. I was a good person. I didn't do drugs. I didn't do alcohol. I was an athlete. And somewhere I got away from that. And my love of cats, I don't know what happened at that point. I just didn't have it anymore. Didn't own a cat, only owned a dog. Listened to rap music, and all we talked about was dog. What's up, dog? DAWG, Snoop Dogg, Nate Dogg. And if you listen to the lyrics from those songs, they're, by today's standards, they're pretty awful. I'm embarrassed to put those things on in front of my daughters, the way they talk about women and drugs and alcohol and things. So it was kind of a divorcing of the dog I used to be before I was married, when I didn't live the lifestyle true to my morals and true to who I am and how I was raised. So Matt the Cat was an opportunity during meetings and online things. Like it took off during the data-driven fasting meetings. They asked me to moderate the group because I was contributing a lot of stuff. I was starting to write articles for people in that group, things they wanted to know about, like leptin and the skin looseness and all this kind of stuff. And so Matt the Cat became this persona because somebody would post something. They're like, some Matt guy posted something last week. You guys know who that was? But as soon as I said Matt the Cat, they all remembered who said, Matt the Cat said this last week. So it made me see, like, it helps me stand out a little bit. So instead of trying to hide in meetings and just play the background because I'm nervous, Matt the Cat puts me out there. Matt the Cat allows me to be kind of my extreme self, boisterous, informative, talkative in a group. And I started wearing things I wouldn't have otherwise worn. I bought an Adidas leopard print satin pajamas. And if you look through my online videos, you'll find it in there a few times. I like to call it the Snoop Cat persona. It was something I never would have worn in public before. I would have been embarrassed to, but I wanted to. And this was a part of me I just couldn't fully become. And so Matt the Cat is an empowering persona and maybe an alter ego that helps me perform at my best in public.
Amazing. So now that we know the story behind Matt the Cat, I interrupted you when you were talking about the physical being the vehicle. So you talked about your book, your career, your clothing. How else has this RNT journey transformed your life?
In addition to those career moves and projects I've talked about, it engaged a part of my learning I had turned off for a while. I want to blame the pandemic, but I think it was kind of happening before the pandemic. My love for learning had just kind of gone on pause because there was too much other stuff going on, and I just didn't have the avenue of learning I was looking for. And RNT has kind of reignited that. So I've started actually looking at becoming certified as a personal trainer again, like I used to be in the past, to engage that part of my my love for teaching people and helping people. I started training a few people during my RNT journey, having experience as a personal trainer before, and having friends who are also not financially fortunate enough to afford the things they want to in the realm of fitness. I started trying to give back what I've learned to people around me. So it's happened to I want to say 2.5, 2 people so far, and another one that's kind of on the go that I'm trying to work with to engage and teach. And I have a group of 3 cousins, my wife's cousins, that want to learn more about physical fitness and transformation. So I'm giving back more than I was able to before, kind of pay it forwards. I've also started attending church again, something I wasn't able to do for quite a while with the pandemic and just not having a true connection there. So I started making some connections there, and that's kind of engaging me in the community a bit more. I've re-engaged a musical project that has old history here. My cup here, I probably can't read it. It says Mountain and Brook. It's a band I started with a friend online during the pandemic because we couldn't be in the same room so much. So we started writing songs online together. And he's moved across the other side of the country now for a while. He's working as a lumberjack and a fireman. But he's coming back, and we've kind of re-engaged the musical project. So I have that outlet of my creativity. So I'm writing, I'm creating music, I'm doing art because of my clothing company, just flourishing all together. I've become more sure of myself and capabilities, and just sure that moving forwards, I can do really cool things and really help change the world.
Amazing. Well, it's been amazing seeing your transformation continue to evolve over the last 15, 18 and couple of years. So I'm excited to see what 2023 holds for you. It's been a pleasure sharing the journey with you so far. I love the support and microphone you give to RNT in your community, always spreading the word, and it's amazing to see that. What's next for Matt the Cat then in 2023? What have you got on your horizons with both your physique and overall?
Yeah, after 4 months now of consolidation and just getting my lifestyle in a comfortable place, I'm really just enjoying exercise again. So I don't really have a whole lot of physique goals, except for maintaining what I built. I don't ever want to lose this again. I've never had this physique, so I don't want to slip back to anything else. And really just loving life and trying to enrich my life and the people around me. It's winter here, so snowboarding. I bought a mountain board, which I'm trying to ride through the winter, which is very challenging cardio. Boxing a lot and kickboxing, doing that with my daughter, who is also trained by a professional boxer in the past.
Nice.
I don't really have a ton of goals right now. I'm trying to increase my lifts again. You might remember I have a long-standing shoulder injury. And when it gets aggravated, it can be excruciating pain that I have to manage, and that can completely take me out of exercise. So that's my number one goal, is to work on increasing my lifts while maintaining my injuries. And this is the most injury-free I've ever felt. After being a tackle football player for so long, I've always had some sort of injury, or skateboarding, snowboarding injuries. So this is the most carefree, pain-free I've ever been. So the other goals I have is through my daughters, is helping them progress their athletic careers and their athletic prowess.
Amazing. And one final piece of advice for the listeners, anyone who's starting their transformation journey, we're in February 2023. This is usually the time where people fall off the wagon, giving up on their January goals. What's one piece of advice you give them to make sure that they make this the best year on record?
Go all in. Do every bit you can. Remember that your lifestyle will be different than your diet, and the diet is a means to an end. If you make it longer than it needs to be, it's harder. And just have faith in yourself, have faith in RNT and in your coach, and be 100% honest with your coach. The more you try and hide or deny or lie about, the harder things will be. The more open you can be with your coach, the more they can understand you and the more they can help you make it through this. And you can do it. This is the way to do it.
Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your journey, Matt. It's been a pleasure. And I know people are going to be inspired by what you've shared today.
Thank you for having me, Akash. Forever in your debt, my friend.